Okay, I'm recording now. Is it okay for you? How are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the sixth episode of Polis Fusedays. So Fusedays is a peer-to-peer sharing session where professionals, academicians, students from TU Delft and also alumni from TU Delft come online and share their work, also work from fields of interest, and have informal discussions. And don't confuse this with another parallel series that we started last week, the alumni graduation thesis series, which aims at a different goal. And this week we have a very interesting presentation, as you might have already seen from the posters and reaching out. So I don't want to introduce this. I think this is special for Asmita, who is the coordinator of the entire Polis Tuesdays event initiative. So maybe Asmita, you should take all the floor and introduce our speaker of the day.
Okay, today we have Wahyu Pratomo. He is a TU Delft Urbanism graduate, maybe 4 years ago, I believe. And then, and then he is working in the NACO as an airport planner. And then, yeah, and now he's going to present about his side projects with his friend from, I forget the country.
Belgium. Yeah.
And then, you can start. Wahyu.
All right. Thank you, Gary and Asmita, for the friendly introduction. Hey, everyone, again. Good evening. My name is Wahyu. I'm originally from Indonesia. I graduated from Urbanism to Delft in 2016, so it's almost 4 years ago. Since then, I actually been working on in a Dutch firm called maybe some of you know. It's quite a I hope it's quite a big name in the Netherlands. It's Royal Haskoning de HV. It's an engineering consultant firm, and I am myself actually in the airport department. So I did my graduation in airport planning. So it's more like a airport city and urban design around the airport, and mostly the aviation kind of related project until now. But today we will not talk about all this let's say technical or theoretical material, but I'm going to share you something else. I was also talking to Asmita, and we were discussing. So what should we give to the audience for the Fuseday? So it's just because Fuseday itself is kind of an informal meeting. So I think it's also quite nice for you to not always hearing about the the textbook kind of sharing session, but now it's more about the something that probably might interest your let's say other side. In this sense, is I'm talking about movies. This is something I am going to share with you today. I'm going to share my screen maybe for now. Well, it's a little bit strange because sometimes when I share about Do Not Settle, this project, I usually play some movies and share you my screen and with the sound and everything. But I think it's probably not the best to share the movies through Zoom. But I'll try my best. So I hope the story can still be shared without showing actually an actual movies. So actually, this Do Not Settle project, well, quote unquote, because we never call it like a project, but actually it started in 2014 when I started TU Delft. So as a side project from my profession as a student back then, I did this series of movies about architecture, planning and travel. So it's more like let's say it's more like an exploration from the perspective of architects and designer, because I did my bachelor's in architecture. So I think that this is also as like a personal interest. And I did it with my friend in Shanghai. He's Chris from originally from Belgium, but he's now is based in Asia. So if you wanna take a look at some of our videos, you can maybe search in YouTube. Do not settle. Hopefully it showed up the first, but otherwise you can scroll a bit further. Then hopefully you'll see some of our videos. But actually, the first, let's say, idea why we did this is because of the problem. Well, not the problem. Let's say the thought of how architecture media has been uh, building our opinion about buildings. This is one of the example. This is probably if you are like hardcore designer, you would know this building. This is 8 House by Bjarke Ingels in Copenhagen. I mean, this is one of the like a masterpiece of architecture. It's a breakthrough design, and having this concept of public space all over the building. You can actually see on the left hand side, you see this corridor. Actually, it's really public. So when you visit there, you can actually access the top floor by only walking the ramp. I mean, this is like, okay, super nice building, but when you visit this building, you start to understand that actually this starts to create a problem, because there's a lot of tourists. There's so many people visiting this building every day, and you could even see some posters on the walls that say don't take pictures, and do not come on the weekend and everything. So it gives a problem for the people who lives there. They start to get annoyed by all these architecture enthusiasts and and designer, instead of having proud of living here, because I think this is like again, this is one of the masterpiece of Bjarke Ingels in his design. So from this thought, we're like, okay, we should probably show architecture in a more honest way, not only the way it has been represented, but how the user actually use it. This is also the same story in one of the big masterpiece of architecture in Beijing. This is National Olympics Stadium by Herzog and de Meuron. uh, I think it was built in 2008 for the Olympics, and it's again, as you see in this picture, it's just a majestic building. It's beautiful with the lightning, and especially with lighting, and then especially all this steel material that has been, it's always been the concept of the design of this building. But when you come there, when you see the building by your own eyes, again, you see a different story. This is what you see, you can never touch the building, never, because it's all fans. And it's also, I have to say, the facade of the building starts quite looking bad. Like there's a lot of dirt, because of, I think, the pollution of the city cannot be hidden by the by the building, because then the steel starts to get very dirty. So yeah, all this let's say honesty from architecture, from the object of the design, is becoming our object to create some kind of documentation to start sharing to people, not only the designer, but also the let's say the non-architects or non-planners audience. And then this has become a start this has become, like a repetitive architecture media in out there. So you see all this beautiful render and highlighting their design, the majestic let's say shape of the building and everything. And we just never understand the view of the user. This is a story about one of the this building. This is a duo in Singapore. This two high rise building designed by Bureau oleh Seren and actually OMA. So they are doing together in partnership. When this building, let's say, announced as a project, they start to, give some a publication to the media. This is basically what they say in Dizine, in Arc Daily, or this kind of media. You don't have to read everything, but I'm trying to highlight this yellow text about how the design actually enhance the urban space, generating the civic space, and then accessible green space. So everything is all about making a human interaction and comfortable landscape area with open again green space. But then you see when it gets built, this is what you see. All this publication, you never see humans. It's just the building. It's you never like understand where are all these the continuous public space integrated landscape with the surrounding and everything. It's never been documented. So there's actually no people. Well, to be fair, there is one person there, but you cannot actually count this one little person who actually used the building. So this is actually where we start to position ourselves in the media, that we want to show what do people think after the completion of the design of the building, or the urban design, or the architecture itself. So it's more like it's less a new way of documenting design. So since 2014 2015, we start to make a lot of videos about architecture, about books, about buildings, and then we actually had also quite a good relationship with some architecture offices, and they sometimes even ask us to make a video about their office or about their buildings. So it's for us, there's these three words that we always bring into our videos. First, it has to be honest, the second has to be fun, and the third is has to be short, because then you start to get a quick understanding about what you're trying to say. Again, I mean, if you see our video, it's really it's not like a visually appealing with the nice diagrams and everything, but that's we're going to get there later, because we think that the visual is not very important to communicate what you think with videos. So from all this video making, we start to actually learn that movie as a communication tool in design, in architecture, in planning, and we start to explore this even more. Now, first, let me ask you before we go further. From these three posters or pictures, which one do you think that is actually done by Apple? Is it the first with the quotes, smartphone of the year, the retina camera, 12 megapixel and everything, or the second one with future ready, bigger, better, faster, or the third one? This is 7.
I think it's the third one.
It's the third one.
If you answer the third one, yes, you're correct. You're right. So even like the brand, the big brand like Apple is choosing the shortest message as possible. The first one, actually, I took it from Nokia advertisement. The second, I took it from a Samsung advertisement, and the third is actually from Apple. So instead of showing everything in one go, they just say this is 7. Yeah, well, that's like a lush way of communication. That is actually the let's say the challenge of today. We need to get the short attention spans. So it's basically how to get attention within only 140 characters of Twitter, with the limitation that you get. Because nowadays there's thousands or millions of contents in the internet, say, and then you as a content makers, you need to get the attention within a very short timing. So that's why the communication now it's more challenging, because you need to get attention from the audience to actually stop by to your ideas and then go deep into it. This principle actually used by famous brand, for example, CNN. Huh? So when you see CNN, every news, they always make a short sentence as a highlight. The sentence sometimes doesn't make any sense. It's not like a complete sentence. Sometimes it's just a phrase or something. But that sentence that you see on the bottom, so all news, is to actually get the attention of the audience. Even though the video is played silently, it still makes sense. Then when they get attention, then the audience can start to maybe the next step, which is increasing the volume or reading the article for the for a text mode and everything. So even you see the CNN let's say caption or highlight, they always try to make it in one let's say in one sentence, in one line, without having the second line. And you see the font also is getting slimmer, huh? When the sentence get longer. So that's why they want to keep it in just 1 second of the attention. So like, okay, so I can understand the sentence, and then the audience starts to watch the actual news. Well, this is also the same in other medias. Huh? Does it have to be always the video, but also in text? Sometimes this has become kind of like a weapon for the clickbait media. So like the reason will shock you, or 12 reason of not going to architecture school, all this kind of stuff. So that's also a trick to get attention from the audience. So because of all this the challenge, because you need to get the attention quickly, so that first that your message has to be single, sharp, and bold. Single meaning that you need to only have one message. You cannot have like multiple message in one in the first impression. This is the example also from uh, famous airlines advertisement by Emirates. You see that they actually tried to sell their business class. Uh, with they probably can tell something else, tell something about the food or the entertainment or the seatings or of the pay or the all the other services that the business class of the Emirates will give you. But instead of explaining all the points, they only say master the art of me time travel. So he's not trying to the Emirates airline is not trying to sell everything in one go. It's just you need one sentence to get the attention, and then start from that. Then you go deeper when after you get attention from the audience. This is also the same thing, huh? As other commercial. This is Tesla. You know, Tesla car is probably not only sustainable, but also let's say they have a new machine. They are automatically driven, and then I don't know, like more safe and a new design and a new material and everything. But again, you cannot just sell everything in one first impression. So instead they just say green never looks so good, and that's probably, let's say, the main concept of this new product. But then after that, then you get more attention from the audience to go deeper. These are actually also the same with design, with architecture. This back to Eight House by Bjarke. The main concept that he always says to us is this infinity of the circulation. It's always talking about the loop and having a public space all over the building. But you actually don't know that maybe there's some more let's say good things in this building, such as the landscape design, and then giving you the view and all these the plus points of the design. But again, he never sells that in the first sentence. It's always the first concept, and then you do this. Now, also, I think it's also something that we learn in planning and urban design. This is one of the competition, urban design competition in Hong Kong. I think this is the winning entries, I think, by Foster and Partners. So this is let's say one of the prestigious competition in urban design or master planning scope. And actually, I mean, you can actually see this the concept of Foster and Partner without having any words, that the concept is to keep the green as much as possible. Although we know that they actually concept some other things like public corridors on the cultural center, and then a nice connectivity between the buildings and the TOD and everything. But on something that they always sell to the media and to the judge is that this green space that is kept as it is. So that's why also the model is highlighting the green space. So it's the way of communicating of the main concept, and then from that main concept you go to the second, the third, the fourth, and so on concept. So that's also the, let's say, the advantage of let's say converting from text to image and then a video. This is just a little example of Starbucks, let's say, to do like what do you call, like a recipe or something. So when you see the instruction, you see, okay, there's a clear instruction 1 2 3 4 5 6, but your eyes is actually faster to get the image than the text. It's because the image itself actually is capture, I think 0.1 second to get the whole visual impression, but to read one paragraph is probably taking you 10 seconds. So that's why I think image here is perceived faster than text. But this is also happened to a video. So when you compare the book, image, and movie. So I mean, when you talk about Harry Potter, you probably read the book for like 4 days, 5 days, and the image, if you convert the book into a comic book, let's say, maybe less, I don't know. But in the movie, you just watch it in 1-2 hours, and it's the main message. Again, the main message is successfully delivered by the shortest format as possible. I think it's also this is also something I learned during the process of urban planning. You always, in the report, in your graduation project, let's say, you always make a lot of text description, of course, for a complete version of your concept, of your design. But there's also images, the concept, the plan. But honestly, if you have if you have a chance to try it with other media, in this case a movie, it's really worth to try. It gives a bit more uh, uh, um, quicker impression, but you can also play with scale. You can also play with the format of the movie. So it's actually giving you more flexibility. And the good thing about movies is that you can always show them in a right sequence. So sometimes when you have a poster, your eyes is going everywhere here and there, but when you have a movie, that's like a really sequential storytelling, I say. So I mean, this is just to conclude. I hope after this we can discuss a bit more about the way to represent the design and planning. But my idea is that there are articles saying that 64% of the consumer are likely to buy product after watching videos. This because video are processed the brain 60 times faster than the text. This is research by the UK's institute. But I think yeah, my main message is start to try the new possibilities, because I mean it's now we start to also understand how the importance of having this the storytelling presentation in a multimedia format. And believe it or not, in the professional let's say word, it starts to get more and more requests from the client that we need to actually show this concept in the movie format. So it's not, I mean, it's to me it's not like something that you need to learn the software, you need to learn the you know, the skill and everything, but it's the logic itself, the logic of representing something, a concept, a product by a movie or a multimedia format. So yeah, I hope we can discuss something else about this in a Q&A session and this sharing session. So it will be interesting to see what you think, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Wahyu. So if you guys have questions, let's discuss. But I think I can start with my questions. So what is your excitement that keeps you making this video again and again? Like, what do you feel, and what kind of maybe something that keeps your motivations to make many videos until today, I think.
Thank you, Asmita, for the question. Well, I think everybody needs a hobby. That's that's one. Um, but I actually I grew up a lot with watching a lot of movies and a lot of YouTube videos. I mean, I think until now actually. So when I don't have any things to do, I always go to YouTube video searching and just do Google a lot of story about the yeah, other everything like movie clips and news and yeah, architecture. And then actually that starts to, you know, like, hey, I want to also contribute to the yeah, to the media, huh? to YouTube. And well, apart from actually there's you know, like a pennies that comes it's also give you a lot of let's say a new community, new friends. And yeah, I think I also learned from a lot of from Dutch friends, huh? I think my Dutch friends, they always have something else apart from their uh, uh, let's say their first word. They sometimes being like a very into sport, like sometimes it's like an athlete kind of level, huh? Like they're really into like yeah, let's say cycling, and then they cycle for like 30 kilometers every weekend and everything like this. And so yeah, I think it's to actually break from your main profession. It's a nice ritual let's say to do this.
Nice. Um, is there someone else to ask? Henry.
Yeah, well, so I've been actually following the channel for a while because like a couple of years ago I got to know Martin Denmark.
Thank you. I'll say hi to him. Yes.
Yeah, and like I mean, like since then I actually haven't seen it now in a while, but now when I check it out, you have like hundreds of thousands of views on some videos even. And like you always describe it as like your hobby side project, sort of. But like in theory, if it would like took off even in a bigger sense, like could you imagine like you becoming like a full-time content creator and just like dedicate your full-time to a YouTube thing, or will it for you always just this be like this fun thing you do in a free weekend or whatever?
well well, thanks for the question, Andre. Uh, well, well, things can change, yeah, of course. But if you ask me now, I think that's actually let's say having the first profession is basically why we have the second the second word, you know, huh? So if you are not an architect anymore, so the how the video can be, you know, so it's how do I say it, huh? Like uh, we always say that, okay, so the perspective of an architect in making all these videos actually help us to get a bit more a sense of in architecture, in design, in the current trends, in the recent development of design and the technology. So if you think, if I leave, let's say, I from my profession as an architect or planning or planners, then I don't think the video will be so relevant anymore, because it's just is probably just let's say yeah, YouTuber or a video makers. But now it's more like, so the architects make a video, or the urban planners make a video. So it's like if you know what I mean, huh? So it's I mean, there's nothing like right or wrong, but I think having the first and the second is not like it's not like a separate thing, but it's a complementary to each other.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Yes,
you-
please.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is not directly related to videos, but more related to academics as such. So because a lot of students don't really go for making videos in their academic curriculum, mainly because there is a lack of time. We have to rush through studios and stuff like that. But then this is more about the visualization that we focus on, because the spatial quality that we try to represent. There are
Yeah.
people who make renders and visualization that are really close to reality. You put real trees or real materials or whatever, but then there are this other kind of visualizations where you go super abstract, things that you find, I don't know, I've personally found it on schools like Bartlett or AA. So
Mhm.
I never understand what they mean by these, because you get an impression of the visualization, but then it's really confusing. What is your take on things like this? How academics should represent visualization? Of course, it's experimental. It's you can do whatever you want, but then in reality, that's not how it's eventually going to look like, right?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. I would say, yeah, we say that it's the visual never it's forget the visual. Let's say it's the quality of the visualization is not the first list on the first three lists. Let's say, but we think that the storytelling is much more important than the quality of the visual. Of course, I mean, I'm not saying that the visual quality is not important, but it helps, it enhances the storytelling, let's say, visualization. But I'm going to show you probably some interesting story about this video. I'm going to show you a video, but it's not going to be let's say seamless playing, but it will take you have some lags. But I mean, my point here is that this guy is making a nice video about airport in London, but he's really not into the visualization, so he does everything with hand sketch and like simple green screen and everything. So but the story is really delivered.
Previously on Unfinished London. London has 6 airports: Heathrow, Gatwick, Stansted, Luton, Southend, City. But the biggest and most important by far is Heathrow. Here it is in 1945. It used to have 6 runways arranged in this shape. And here it is in 2014. 2 of the runways have been embiggened so that today's massive planes can use them. The terminal has been completely rebuilt and new ones added here, here, here and here. The 4 old runways haven't been used for decades because they're too short now, but they can still clearly be seen. From above, you can see just how huge Heathrow has now become. Today, Heathrow has become the busiest international...
Well, that's just a little bit of overview, but along the way also you see that the quality of his video is, let's say, not the best, but it's really when you follow the story, it's really everything, it makes sense what he says. Like, oh, it's a nice story. It's actually a 6-minute video. Huh? It's quite a long one, but you will I bet that you will stay to the video until the end, because it's a very nice story. There's also some other example, which is this one. Okay, before I'm playing, so this video is done by Apple again, but here there's nothing, let's say, highlighted about the visual, but they only use text in visualizing the product. This, I think this is iPhone 7 launch, and this is the video done by Apple.
Sweet home Alabama.
Well, and so on. No, I mean, you see that in this let's say video, you don't really need a visual. You need a good script, and then your concept is delivered. So I mean, I don't think that's let's say connected directly to your question, Gary, but I think that the visual representation again is to me is really not the most important. And I think but that's actually, let's say, the plus point, as we understand now, most of us can do Photoshop, Illustrator, and everything. That's a plus point, but do not remember that the most important is storytelling.
Yeah. We have another interesting question in the comments. Has any of the architects whose buildings you have put in your videos contacted you directly and explained to you about these issues that you pointed out?
Especially for the architecture. Yes. Well, thank you, Inas Raras, for the questions. The answer, yes. There is. I mean, I wouldn't. Should I say? Maybe I shouldn't. The building. um, so we did some videos for actually for the official, for the architect's office, let's say FVRV, for example. We actually flew to one of their building in China, in Tianjin Library. If you know, there's this library with a big ball in the middle of it. So it's quite funny that because let's say we were sponsored by them, and they, in the beginning, they already told us, like, hey, there's a problem with this in this corner, so don't shoot that corner because it's a bad construction and finishing. So we never did. and this building actually creates a lot of attention. This Tianjin Library has been blown up in the media a lot, and it's actually like kind of mixed comment by people, because people either really like it or hate it. And they said the biggest reason why people hate it is because the books that are on the wall are fake. And and because this thing they I mean it was, of course, it was designed for the real book, but then during the construction, the Chinese government has their, like a fire safety measure that the book cannot be the real book, so it has to be, there shouldn't be any books on the wall because of this the fire thing, blah blah blah. So we had to say something about it, right? We cannot not say about it because it's obviously been a controversial content of the building. So yeah, in a way, when you see the video, we try to be politically nice about this book situation, but that's just because we were, let's say, we were given a message by the architect itself to let's say to say it in a nice way, instead of showing it like, okay, we don't care about people opinion and everything. But when you go, like, for example, if I go to a building without any sponsor or anything, I just come in and I say something that I always think in mind. Like, I remember I went to this Frank Gehry building in Paris, this museum, I think, it's a Fondation Louis Vuitton, I remember, yeah. And it was, I have some bad comments about that building, but I think Frank Gehry will not be happy about the video. But actually, the people likes the comments that we give, because they think the same. Like the building has a weird angle and everything. Frank Gehry. Yeah. So yeah, I tried also to be honest in the more honest to this Frank
I
Gehry
think
stuff.
I think there's a question, I think similar to or relatable to what you just said about your comments. So how hard is it for you to make objective decisions than subjective? Because everybody has their own perspective for design and an eye for design. So how hard is it for you to make these videos, and because it's going out to public, right? And
Yeah,
people will obviously judge your perspective, and they'll
yeah.
obviously compare it to their own. How hard is it for you?
Yeah, that's also the thing about design. There's nothing about correct or incorrect design. It's always like a good or bad, like, and it's also always been a personal thing sometimes. But there's some key issues that you can always address in these matters. For example, if you're talking about station or airport or like a public infrastructure building, there's this, we call it like a five, what do you call, a five triangle stack, let's say, but these five factors is: the first is the safety, the second is speed, the third is the ease, the fourth is comfort, and then experience. So the safety has to be always the first thing. Is when because when you see the building without the emergency exit, then you know that it's not right, it's not a correct, it's not a nice building, because yeah, it's definitely going to kill people. But then you talk about the speed is usually mostly for airport, for station. So you see like the flow, the circulation of people. And then you start talking about the ease, which is like how easy is it to orientate yourself in a building. And then you talk about comfort, and then the experience later. Experience is always like a nice spice in it, so it's so this five thing that we always think when we say something about the design.
Okay, thank you. One more question from Ganesh. So this is about the process that you put into making your videos. So how do you visualize these? Do you, before going on a trip, do you say, okay, this is what I want to make? Or is it like a on-the-go process? You shoot and then you come back and make a video out of it? Or is there like a particular story that you already have in your mind? What is the process? And also like the technical part of it would be also nice to be addressed.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question, thank you. Who is this?
Ganesh.
Oh yeah, Anish. Yes. Yes. Basically, no. There's. I cannot say we always do this way. We always do that way now. Because I have to be honest, it's not always the case. Sometimes like you bring your camera and there's a nice building. Let's go. Sometimes just go like that. But let's say the proper process for us is to first make a script. So to first to plan what kind of shot, what kind of story, what kind of highlight. But but sometimes well, not sometimes, maybe most of the time actually, to be in that building for the very first time is more genuine than having making a script first. So that's also, you know, the honesty comes along when you come to the design or the building for the very first time, because you know the first time comes only once, and that the first impression always the most honest impression, and that's always let's say the thing that we always offer. But actually one of the one of the hardest thing for us in this process is to choose the music. I mean, that's surprisingly really difficult, because you know that when you want to edit a video, you need to have a certain mood. Is it like a chill, or it's more like a you know, like
Energetic.
funky, yeah, kind of energetic? Then it takes some time to actually find the music. Surprisingly, yeah.
Okay. There's one more interesting question from Ella. This is about advertising your products. So the first building, I think the second project that you shot in Singapore, it was
Mm-hmm.
all about the nice looking renders and without any people. And these are like advertisements and marketing techniques that these companies put in. Maybe the developer, maybe not the architect, but the developer. But then, how easy is it to judge these kinds of buildings? Is it true that these advertisements are always how they look like? I mean, obviously it's not. But how do you, what is your opinion on that?
Um,
Advertisements versus reality.
yeah.
And
The,
can I add one more thing? She has
sure.
also said good brands don't advertise.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's why it's only says this is 7 because everybody knows. But that's like a different story, I think, because it's renowned brand already and everything. But yeah, I think you're right. The product should speak itself. So advertising, let's say, well, I'm not an expert in advertising and this marketing world, but if you talk about buildings. It's mostly that we see. I mean, again, it's not every building like this, but the what we see in the media is that once the even once the building is developed, then they do a bit more a description, the description of the building, like, hey, this is a plaza for people to do let's say activities, and the open space, and the nice roof, and blah blah blah. But it's not, it's always been a description instead of narrative. And I think that's something that I think the design world is lacking. So I think this the way of storytelling of the design, maybe it should be not. I mean, I don't say it should be different, but will be nice to see other perspective of the narrative way of storytelling. So instead of always like. Okay, this is iPhone, and then there's 2 cameras, and then 2 retinas, blah blah blah. But then instead you make a story about how this iPhone can do what this iPhone can do for you. Say your that's also why I think some of the Apple advertisement now is changing, because you probably understand that in the past, Apple as always, when they make a new iPhone, they always like do like a zoom in, and then making a turn, and then like explaining, okay, this is the battery, and then the camera, and then the flash, and the screen, blah blah blah. But now if you go to Apple YouTube, actually you don't see this anymore. Well, maybe one or two, but most of the advertisement is about the story. So when you talk about the camera, they're making people dancing, and then with a nice background and moving around. So that's how the camera does for you, instead of explaining what the camera is.
Because now camera has become something common for everyone. You don't need to edit.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
Alankrita has a question. I skipped her. Sorry. Your mic is off.
So I have a question for
Yeah.
because oh yeah, do you want
Hi.
that? Yes.
Sorry.
Hi.
So my question might take another whole discussion for you. It would be nice to get another one for this topic. But what I would like to talk about is right now, I think the most of the audience are from urbanism. So not exactly every urbanism and landscape, let's say, but not everybody is working on the building scale. So building scale or urban design, which is the street scale, maybe, which is very easy to capture. So I'm taking up this topic because currently I'm working with an organization here which is focusing more on the vision making process, more like a city scale, more like a regional perspective, or even the national scale. So my question to you is, have you ever thought of actually ranging your ideas from this architecture scale to other bigger scales? Or do you have some ideas which you would like to, which you can share with us?
Oh, I'm sorry. What's can you just
Like
repeat the question again?
the video, this video
Mhm.
approach for a more bigger scale. So this vision making process, because these are something, not something that could be captured just with some maps or just with some,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of storytelling behind it, and
Mhm.
sadly it's more written. So if I'm talking about policies and vision making, that which I'm
Yeah.
working on, and if you have any ideas about how it can be turned into a video aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's really another round of
Yes,
discussion.
exactly.
No, but that's a very nice question, Alan Krita. I think I'm also still struggling with it sometimes when
Mhm.
in work also, like when you try to explain not the visual but rather the policy or the or other aspect. But what I cannot give you probably one specific tips or way of doing this, but I'm just going to give you a very nice YouTube channel
Yeah.
called Fox. Do you know Fox? VOX. This is
Uh,
I think it's one of the best media I've ever
yeah.
encountered these days in YouTube. So I mean, look at the way how they tell story, because it's again it's not always about the visual, but sometimes it's about the value that is very intangible, and
Mm.
the way the way they present it is very interesting. I think from Fox we can learn about how they not only the way they visualize it, but also the how the story is developed. So even from
Yes.
the intro is very interesting how Fox is making in the video with and then there's some kind of a sequence that they always make this for their video. So that's why I think the I call it like a future of journalism, and so instead of having instead of having a descriptive story, they do it a bit in a way in a more narrative way, which is a
Yeah.
very interesting way. So yeah,
Okay.
I'll suggest you to see this
Yes.
YouTube channel.
Sure, sure. I'll check that out. But yeah, maybe it would be like, maybe in a separate, more personal discussion in a more professional way, we
Yeah,
could really talk about it, because yeah, and with the policy background, we even struggle to make some good illustrations at times. Like it's so much written, even making a diagram out of it becomes very difficult. So it would be really nice to see the transition from this written text with 100
yeah,
pages written text into a video. So that would be really nice to see.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Alankrita, for the question. We have time for just one more question. Yeah, Sanjana, maybe you can ask it directly.
Okay, so with the current generation, which you mentioned, having a shorter span, like every content that we're gonna end up posting as urbanists, let's say, the observations that you make, and the way, I mean, I was very inspired by the video skills and videos you post. I think some are your own interpretations and also some are general interpretations. So, I mean, in the future, as any urbanists who are seeking for such similar hobbies, do you think we would have to resort to, let's say, posters and visual and video formats, or and the future does not lie in writing blogs or magazine articles? Like, I mean, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, it's because more and more, like I see people who had started with these. I mean, initially I used to follow these urbanists who were writing blogs, like 3 years back or 4 years back running a website, and because of this long content and because we are in this time crunch, you stop keeping track, and they also maybe lose interest because okay, nobody's reading them anymore. So what's the future of this, do you think? Rise.
Well, thank you, Sanjana, for the question. I mean, I cannot predict the future for sure, but but it's looking back, and let's say 5 years back. Let's say I think back then the let's say the biggest social media was probably Twitter. And 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it was Instagram. Everybody is on doing Instagram. But you know what's today? It's TikTok. It's the biggest social media in the world. So it's also not only telling us about the new format that people asking, but it's also the evolution of how text being an image and then being a video. And so I wouldn't say a video will be, let's say, will stay as so long, but maybe there's another format that will be a new trend in the coming years. But to me, I think the most important probably is not, let's say, it's not stick to one format, but rather the logic of the storytelling, the being direct, being as short, and that's I think that actually that's probably one of the biggest lesson learned I learned in TU Delft, which you do a lot of presentation, a lot of lectures, and making a lot of concept. I think storytelling will actually is something that you will be taken away after you graduate from TU Delft. So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have an answer for that, Sanjana,
No,
but
but I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
I think, do we have anybody else who wants to ask one more urgent question? Yes, no? Okay. Asmita, maybe you can close the session.
Yeah, okay, thank you everyone. I think, and especially for Wahyu, for able to wake until this late in Indonesia time and sleep before the sessions. And it is very interesting because we can see that maybe maybe we can have another motivations for making videos, so the storytelling can engage more people and tell more interesting stories for the others. And thank you guys. I think the recording will be shared in the group and also through the Polis Instagram. And see you for next 2 weeks for other Polis Fuseday sessions. And then do you want to say closing statement? How are you?
No, but just thank you everyone for having time to listen to some nonsense stuff maybe for you. But I'm happy to be back, and please enjoy your time while you're a student in TU Delft. It's the best time probably of these 2 years. Thank you.
Nice.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you
Bye
guys
bye.
for the time. Thank you, Kak Wahyu.
Bye bye.
Okay, before the rest of the urbanism and landscape students go, we have a short announcement. I think whoever wants to leave can leave. Only the urbanism and landscape students, if they can wait back.
Maybe you can stop recording, Asmita.